let me ask you something. Why are we so obsessed with the end of the world? I mean, think about it. It's everywhere, right? In our movies, our books, even our nightmares. Zombies, nuclear winter, you name it. We just can't seem to look away from the idea of our own destruction.
But why? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into that fascination by looking at the stories we tell about the end of everything. And our guide for this journey? It's actually a pretty cool case study, a 9th grade literature curriculum that's built around this exact topic.
And right at the heart of that curriculum is the one question that's going to guide us through this whole explainer. It's simple, but it's really powerful. Why do we even try to imagine the future? So let's dig in and see what kinds of answers these stories offer up. Okay, so answer number 1. A huge reason we imagine the end is, well, to warn ourselves. It's that simple. These stories are basically giant, flashing warning signs, cautionary tales that hold up a mirror to the anxieties of our own time. Let's look at a classic example. Stephen Vincent Benet's story, By the Waters of Babylon. We're introduced to this character, John. He's a young guy, a priest in training, living in this post-apocalyptic world. And his whole society is built on this one single rule. Don't make the same mistakes the old civilization did. And that means it is absolutely forbidden to go to the ruined place of the gods.
But you know how it goes. John's curiosity, his hunger for knowledge, it's just too much. He breaks the rules. He makes the journey to that forbidden land. And what he finds there, well, it blows his mind. He sees these broken god roads and the skeletons of these impossibly high towers. He's totally convinced he's stumbled into the land of the gods themselves.
But as we're following along, we start to get a different feeling, don't we? We start to suspect something else is going on here. So what was this place of the gods? And who were these so-called gods anyway?
And here's the twist, the big warning of the story. The place of the gods, it was New York City. And the gods, they weren't gods at all. They were us, humans. A civilization that brought about its own destruction in what the story calls the Great Burning. It's such a powerful lesson, isn't it? About how quickly everything we've built can just vanish and be forgotten.
Now that's one kind of warning, but Ray Bradbury's famous story There Will Come Soft Rains gives us a different one. This story poses a really chilling question: what happens when our technology actually outlives us? The whole story takes place in just one location, a completely automated house, just going about its daily routine, long after the family who lived there is gone.
And Bradbury uses this amazing literary trick here. It's called personification. He gives the house human qualities. So the house isn't just a place, it's pretty much the main character. You've got a clock that sings out the time, you've got these little robotic mice that scurry around cleaning, and a kitchen that makes a whole breakfast for absolutely no one. The result is just so eerie, so incredibly lonely.
And the only clue we get about what happened to the family, it's this single haunting image burned onto an outside wall. The silhouettes of the family captured in the instant of their obliteration, like a nuclear shadow photograph. It's just this stark, silent warning about how sudden, how total something like nuclear war can be.
So you see, these stories, they're not just make-believe. They're a way for us to try and process some very, very real fears, and the curriculum makes this connection explicit. It pairs these stories with nonfiction, like an article called The Nuclear Tourist, which is all about people who visit Chernobyl. That kind of dark tourism, it becomes its own strange way of dealing with these anxieties, of confronting a future that could have been.
And speaking of real-world anxieties, that brings us to maybe the most famous apocalypse story of all time, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio broadcast. You know the legend, right? That it caused this huge nationwide panic, people running for the hills? Well, the data tells a very different story. Turns out, most people weren't even listening.
How many? Just 2%. Yep, a survey done right after the broadcast found only about 2% of households with a radio were actually tuned in. The huge majority? They were listening to a popular comedy show on a different station. So that whole mass panic thing? Yeah, pretty much a myth.
So, why the big story then? Why the myth? Well, an article in the curriculum points to a classic case of media anxiety. Newspapers were feeling threatened by this new, popular kid on the block, the radio.
So they blew the story way out of proportion to make their competitors seem irresponsible and dangerous. So in a weird way, this apocalypse story wasn't about the end of the world. It was about the fear of the end of a business model. Okay, so we've talked about warnings, but that's not the only reason we tell these stories. Sometimes imagining the end of the world is a form of reckoning. It's a way to demand justice, to imagine hitting a giant reset button on the whole world as we know it.
A powerful example of this is Sherman Alexie's poem, The Powwow at the End of the World. It uses the idea of the apocalypse as this moment of ultimate reckoning. The speaker basically lists all the things that would have to happen before he would forgive the historical injustices done to his people. And the conditions are impossible, right? Like tearing down a massive dam or seeing salmon return to rivers where they've been gone for decades. By doing this, the poem just hammers home the sheer scale of the wrongs that need to be made right.
All right, so we've got fiery warnings and we've got these powerful reckonings. But what if the end of the world isn't some big, loud, dramatic event? What if it's quiet? So quiet, in fact, that we don't even notice it's happening.
So on the one hand, you have the Hollywood version, right? Fire from the sky, towers falling, cities in ashes. But then you have this poem by Czesław Miłosz, a song on the end of the world. And it imagines something completely different. Instead of chaos and destruction, he just describes a totally ordinary day. A bee buzzing around a clover, a fisherman mending his net, the sound of a violin hanging in the air. These aren't images of the world ending. They're images of life just continuing.
And that right there, that's the poem's brilliant and honestly kind of unsettling twist. We're all waiting for the lightning and thunder, the big dramatic finale. But the poem suggests that the end of the world might be happening right now, quietly, all around us. Maybe the real danger isn't the big explosion, but the fact that we're so busy looking for it that we miss the real end happening right under our noses.
So, let's pull all these threads together. Where does this leave us? We've looked at stories that paint the future as a stark warning, as a moment of cosmic reckoning, and even as this quiet, everyday event that we might not even see.
What this all points to is a really fundamental truth. Our stories about the future are almost never really about the future. They're mirrors. Powerful mirrors that reflect who we are right now, in the present. Our fears, what we value, what we hope for. It shows that the present and the future aren't two different things. They're totally, completely connected.
And that brings us to the ultimate paradox of all this. Thinking about the end of the world. It sounds kind of morbid, doesn't it? But it's not. It's actually a profoundly creative and even hopeful thing to do. It's how we give ourselves permission to look critically at the world we have now and, just like John standing in the ruins of New York, to start imagining how we could rebuild it all, but better this time.
So when you boil it all down, all of these stories, from all these different angles, they all point back to one final, really important question. That's not for them, but for us. Looking around at our world today, at our own anxieties, our own hopes, what's the story we're telling about our future right now?